The story begins on the afternoon before Thanksgiving in 1971 at Portland International Airport in Oregon. Travelers hurry through the terminal, unaware that one ordinary passenger is about to become part of American history. The man approaches the Northwest Orient ticket counter and purchases a one-way ticket to Seattle. He pays entirely in cash and writes the name Dan Cooper. Nothing about his appearance seems unusual. Witnesses later describe him as polite, calm, and neatly dressed. He blends into the crowd without attracting attention. Flight 305 departs Portland for Seattle shortly after takeoff. It is a short flight, less than an hour, but events on board will soon make it unforgettable. A few minutes into the flight, the man quietly hands a folded note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner. At first, she assumes it contains a phone number. Instead, the note contains a chilling message. The passenger calmly tells her that he has a bomb and asks her to sit beside him. According to later testimony, Cooper briefly opens his briefcase just enough for the attendant to glimpse what appears to be cylindrical objects connected by wires. Investigators could never confirm what the device actually was. His demands are precise: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting when the aircraft lands in Seattle. Air traffic controllers quietly relay the demands to the FBI and local authorities. While passengers remain unaware, preparations begin on the ground. To avoid alarming the passengers, the pilots circle the aircraft above Seattle, while authorities gather the ransom and parachutes. The investigation has already begun, before the plane has even landed. On the ground, authorities begin assembling Cooper's demands. The ransom must consist of $200,000 in $20 bills. Investigators record the serial numbers so that any money spent later might lead them back to the hijacker. At the same time, officials search for 4 parachutes that can be delivered to the aircraft when it lands. Flight 305 continues circling, while the preparations below move slowly. Most passengers believe the delay is caused by a mechanical problem. Cooper remains calm. He speaks quietly, watches the activity outside, and waits while the crew follows his instructions. Nothing about his behavior suggests panic or uncertainty. After sunset, the aircraft finally lands at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. It stops in a distant, carefully selected area of the runway. The cabin lights are lowered, and Cooper orders the window shades closed. Outside, vehicles approach carrying the money and parachutes he requested. The ransom and parachutes are brought aboard. Cooper examines what he has received. Once satisfied, he releases all 36 passengers along with 2 members of the flight crew. The passengers walk down the stairs into the rainy night, many only now beginning to understand how serious the situation has become. Cooper now gives the crew new instructions. He wants the aircraft flown toward Mexico City. He demands a low altitude, reduced speed, and specific handling of the cabin and landing gear. The pilots explain that the aircraft will need to refuel before reaching Mexico. A route through Reno, Nevada is arranged. One feature of the Boeing 727 is especially important to Cooper: a stairway built into the rear of the aircraft. He asks for it to be lowered before takeoff, but the crew explains that this cannot safely be done on the ground. Cooper agrees that the stairs can be lowered after the plane is airborne. At approximately 7:40 that evening, Flight 305 leaves Seattle for the second time. Only Cooper and a small flight crew remain aboard. 2 military aircraft secretly follow from a distance, but poor visibility and the darkness make it difficult to watch the airliner continuously. Cooper orders the flight attendant to join the rest of the crew in the cockpit. He is now alone in the passenger cabin with the ransom and parachutes. Before leaving, the attendant sees him working with the money bag and the equipment he has been given. Investigators later determined that Cooper cut suspension cord from one of the parachutes. He apparently used it to secure the bag containing the ransom. He also leaves some of the parachute equipment behind, including a reserve parachute intended only for training and sewn shut. From the cockpit, The crew notices an indicator showing that the rear stairway has been activated. The pilots speak to Cooper through the aircraft's internal communication system. He tells them that everything is all right and instructs them to continue flying. The crew offers to assist Cooper with the stairway. He refuses. It is the final confirmed communication anyone has with the hijacker. Beyond the cockpit door, the rear cabin remains silent as the aircraft travels south through rain, darkness, and heavy cloud cover. Shortly after 8 o'clock, the crew feels a noticeable change in the aircraft's movement. The tail appears to rise and then correct itself. Investigators later use this moment to estimate when Cooper may have left the aircraft. No one actually sees him jump. The aircraft continues to Reno. When it finally lands, armed authorities surround the plane. The crew opens the cockpit and searches the cabin. Cooper is gone. The rear stairway is still lowered, and several objects remain behind, but neither the hijacker nor the ransom is aboard. Investigators carefully process the aircraft. They recover fingerprints, a black clip-on tie, a tie clip, cigarette butts, and parachute equipment. The tie will become one of the case's most recognizable pieces of evidence, yet none of these items provides a definitive identity. The man bought his ticket using the name Dan Cooper, but during the early reporting, a separate name from police inquiries, D.B. Cooper, was mistakenly published by the media. The incorrect name spread around the world and became permanently attached to the mystery. Investigators attempt to calculate where Cooper may have landed, but the plane's changing speed, wind, weather, and uncertain jump time create an enormous search area across southwestern Washington. Teams examine forests, fields, rivers, and difficult mountain terrain. No parachute, ransom bag, or confirmed trace of Cooper is found. The conditions were severe. It was dark, rainy, and cold. Cooper wore a business suit and loafers rather than clothing designed for wilderness travel. The main parachute he selected could not be steered. The FBI eventually came to doubt that he was an expert skydiver, arguing that an experienced jumper would have recognized how dangerous the situation was. But absence of evidence is not proof that he died. No body was recovered. No parachute was conclusively linked to a landing site, and none of the ransom money appeared in circulation through an obvious purchase or bank deposit. This leaves open the possibility that Cooper survived and quietly disappeared. Then, in February 1980, the case changes. An 8-year-old boy digging near the Columbia River uncovers 3 deteriorating bundles of $20 bills. The total is $5,800. Investigators confirm that the serial numbers match Cooper's ransom money. The discovery proves that at least a small portion of the ransom reached the riverbank, but it does not explain how. The money could have been carried by water, buried intentionally, or moved by natural changes to the river. Instead of closing the mystery, the discovery gives investigators another puzzle. The FBI names the investigation NORJAC, short for Northwest Hijacking. Agents interview witnesses, examine physical evidence, and investigate thousands of tips. By the 5th anniversary, more than 800 suspects have been considered. Similar hijackers, military veterans, aviation workers, and people with unexplained money are all examined. One frequently discussed suspect is Richard Floyd McCoy, who carries out a similar parachute hijacking several months later. But investigators rule him out. Flight attendants' descriptions do not match him closely enough, and the FBI identifies other conflicts with the evidence. Similarity alone is not proof. Decades later, advances in forensic science allow investigators to return to Cooper's tie. DNA is recovered, although the sample does not conclusively identify the person who wore it. Researchers also examine microscopic particles on the fabric, hoping they might reveal something about Cooper's occupation or workplace. Another intriguing clue is the name itself. Dan Cooper was also the hero of a French-language comic series about a Canadian military pilot. The comics were not widely available in the United States, Investigators considered whether the hijacker had encountered them while living abroad, but this remains only a theory. In 2016, after 45 years of investigation, the FBI redirects active resources away from the case. The agency says that none of the thousands of tips, suspect theories, or newer forensic techniques has produced enough evidence to identify the hijacker beyond a reasonable doubt. The surviving evidence is preserved. The documented facts form a strange but incomplete picture. A man calling himself Dan Cooper boarded Flight 305. He demanded money and parachutes. He released the passengers. He left the aircraft somewhere between Seattle and Reno. And after that moment, his confirmed trail ended. We do not know his real name. We do not know exactly where he left the aircraft. We do not know whether he reached the ground alive. We do not know how the recovered money reached the Columbia River. And we do not know what happened to the remaining ransom. Perhaps Cooper died in the wilderness that night, leaving no witness and no recoverable trace. Perhaps he survived and returned to an ordinary life, carrying a secret no one around him ever discovered. Both possibilities can be imagined. Neither can be proven. What remains is a ticket, a tie, a few damaged bills, and a man who stepped into the darkness and vanished from history. More than half a century later, the final question remains unchanged. Who was D.B. Cooper?